I'm going to call this meeting of the Gloucester School Committee to order. I'll remind everybody that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. And I will ask you to join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. The next order of business is oral communications. If you are an attendee and would like to and are joining us on a computer, there should be a little button down to the right where you can raise your hand and I will recognize you. If you are on a phone and want to speak, you have to punch *9 and I will, it will indicate that you want to speak. So with that being said, is there anybody who would like to address the school committee under oral communications? Okay, and please identify yourself as, I don't always have your name in front of us, but for in-house, so we have one person who's speaking. Go right ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Hi, this is Cynthia Mahowski over at Wall Street in Gloucester, also over at the high school. I really hope you guys are doing well and staying safe and staying healthy. I just wanted to one, say how much I appreciate like how much you are dealing with and supporting the schools during this weird and strange time. I also wanted to acknowledge how awesome James Cook has been in terms of everything he's doing at the high school. It's just, it just have a leader who's so competent and caring and just really great, makes a huge difference when you're already stressed out and confused or all these other things. And he's really awesome at keeping our faculty together and keeping the kids together. I mean, I had a student who was like, oh, Mr. Cook just walked to my house, you know, to drop off paper because the student still doesn't have like Wi-Fi at home and we're still working on that. And so he just happened to be on Mr. Cook's walk home. But I wanted to say that. And two, I really hope that the English teacher new hire will be still in the budget for next year. We desperately need one. And it will cut down on class sizes. It would cut down, it would just, it's something, I mean, students have to do that all 4 years. And now that so much is going online back and forth and seeing the kids, you know, writing and reading ability on their own, I mean, it would be much more helpful if we had another English teacher in our department who wasn't replaced a few years ago. And you know, just that's really all I wanted to say. I mean, just I know that our deans are working really hard. I know that our administration and just that you'll consider that. And then I'd made a previous comment about when you were initially doing the budget about the part-time administrator with the special ed position, which I didn't recognize how I thought, whatever, I just realized now, like having that ability for somebody to be able to handle all the administrative duties and have those taken off the shoulders of Mr. Cook and Ms. Carlson and everybody else who's already super overworked because of the lack of the vice principal when Maria Lyson was let go a few years ago. I realized that the special ed position actually is important. So thank you so much, and I appreciate you listening. And I hope really everybody's doing well and staying safe.
Thank you. And we have Kerrie Donahue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just had a quick question. Just in reference to the grades, not just the seniors, who I know that is on the agenda tonight with the prom and graduation and those types of things. I'm just wondering when you have a transition class, like a 5th grade class or an 8th grade class, when the state lifts their restrictions to congregate, and of course when it's safe to do so, would the school committee permit class gatherings in the summertime for either grade level gatherings or, you know, a school class gathering? And what would have to happen for us to be able to do that?
I'm not sure I can answer that in total right this minute. I think that we are going to follow the state guidelines wherever they lead us. And as far as us approving something within those guidelines, somebody would have to put forth a specific proposal for us to, or the administration would come up with some guidance once if the restrictions are lifted. But as far as having things going on in the summer, we're certainly not opposed to that by any means. So I hope that, I guess the real answer is stay tuned.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Give us some hope anyway.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is comments from the chairperson. And I would just like once again to reiterate how grateful we all are on the school committee to all of the teachers and the work that they're doing to the distance learning. We're grateful to the food service workers who are providing lunch for 400 students a day. I don't know if that was the number we had last week. It wouldn't surprise me if that's gone up. We'll be getting an update on all of that. And I'd like to thank, once again, just point out that our school nurses are volunteering their time to help doing verification of where people have been and met. So moving on, do we have any recognitions? Kathy?
Yes, hopefully people have heard about it in the community through social media, and I don't think it's hit the newspaper yet, but the actual print paper. But I wanted to recognize the teachers at the high school in the engineering department, as well as a couple of the science teachers from O'Malley. And also Aria McElhenney, who I believe has joined us for this call on this fabulous 3D printing project that we have going for personal protective equipment for face shields. And I know that the high school is producing a much sturdier kind of medical grade, but the middle school is producing also a face shield that is extremely, in desire as well. Today, 250 face shields have been distributed to organizations that need it. And I just thought maybe Aria could give kind of the top synopsis or explanation, because I know she's been spearheading the whole thing.
Okay. Aria, would you like to comment?
Sure. Am I off mute now?
Yep.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I mean, I just have to say what an amazing coming together of a lot of really hardworking people this effort has been. We just kind of, put out the call to see if people wanted to try to do this, and it was like a no-brainer. So many people jumped on board and wanted to get this done for the community. So it's been really amazing to see all these teachers get in the labs and get all of the equipment up and running, and they're really there long hours doing this just to help as many people as they can. So, and you know, I feel lucky that GEF can be involved in an effort like this and feel like we're helping along with so many others involved to make an impact. You know, everyone just kind of wants to do something to help these days, and it's sometimes hard to do that. So thank you to everyone who has jumped on board to help do that for our community, and then potentially beyond our community once we fill as many needs as we can here. We're hoping to provide these face shields outside of our community as well.
Well, thank you, Aria, and thank you to the GEF for supporting this program. So,
Jonathan, I just want to mention the teachers also by name.
yes,
So at the
please.
middle school, it's Amy Donnelly and David Brown, who've been pumping out the face shields there. And at the high school, it's the Energizer Bunny, Kurt Lichtenwald, John Barry, and Tim Quinn, who is the coordinator of the engineering lab. So it's, you know, a few people putting out a lot of equipment and really fine-tuning and adjusting what they're doing and how they're doing it to make it efficient, asking for feedback from nurses and people that would be the end user on the design and making tweaks. So it's, you know, been pretty exciting, and the mayor has been extremely supportive, connecting us with sorts of people that can full, in particular Senator Tarr's office. So anyway, it's a good way to be productive in a time that we're all kind of stuck being able to do all the things we want to do.
Any other recognitions? Joel.
I'd just like to recognize the Gloucester High School athletic staff.
We can't hear you, Joel.
Really?
Yeah.
Any better?
Yep, that's much better.
Okay. I'd like to recognize the Gloucester High School athletic staff. They've been hosting workouts for all the district's athletes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I've actually stuck into a couple of them, and they are robust, to say the least. I invite all of you to try and hack it with these athletes. But I think it's great. It's several coaches, the athletic director, and they all take about an hour of their time 3 times a week to, over Zoom, present an exercise video that the student athletes are able to perform with their guidance. Anyone who wants to keep their camera on, the coaches give you real-time feedback. So I think it's, you know, it's a lot of dedication from the coaching staff, and I think it's really admirable.
Anything else? Any other recognitions? Okay, moving on. We have the Gloucester High School Student Advisory Council here, and I apologize. You were here last week, and I didn't realize it, and I didn't recognize you. But Catherine Bevins is here, and I believe you're joined by, I'm not sure who else, but you're not here alone. So you have the floor. You have to turn on your microphone. We don't hear you. There should be, in the lower left-hand corner, a little microphone that has a slash through it. If you click that, it will come live. Well, maybe I can do it from here.
She's unmuted.
She's unmuted. So Catherine, for some reason we can't hear you.
She's still showing muted.
So now she's muted, but she wasn't before.
Yeah.
She was on my screen, so that's what I'm saying.
she
She
is.
probably don't realize.
Right now, she's not muted.
No, she's showing muted on my screen. Everyone's showing muted except me and you and
Huh,
Jonathan.
she's not showing muted on my screen.
Yep. Do sign
I'm
language.
being asked to unmute. I don't know if he's unmuting the wrong person. This is Amy Pasquarello. It says the host is trying to unmute me.
Okay.
Maybe Catherine can call in by phone like I have to.
Catherine, do you have a cell phone that you can access or a landline? Grant, I don't have the number right in front of me. Do you?
I can get that 1 second.
Or if she goes on the mute button and clicks the arrow up, it gives you the information on how to do it, to join by phone.
Catherine, here's the phone number from the agenda. It's 1-312-626-6799. Hopefully they won't ask for a meeting ID. If they do, I can give that to you.
Yeah, she's showing muted. That's the whole thing. Her little microphone has a cross through it.
But it's not showing up on my screen, and we're hosts, so I don't know what's
So
going on.
now she's showing up muted on my screen now. And we're all seeing different things. That's weird.
So Catherine, have you called? Have you called on the phone? Wave your hands if you did. No, you have not. Okay. Is there somebody else here with you that perhaps? Oh, you got the phone, but you're not getting anything?
Okay, does it work?
I got you. We got you. I just heard you.
Perfect. Okay.
Please just hang up the.
You're getting an echo now because you have your phone on too.
Okay. As much as I would like to be reporting on all uppings, does this work?
Yep.
Okay. Remote learning has been going fairly well. If most students, even most students believe that's actually more difficult than the average school day. I would like to applaud teachers on their commitment to the remote learning plan and being available during our scheduled class time, just to talk and answer questions we may have, whether it be via email or Google Hangout call. As of yesterday, when the governor announced the shutdown of all Massachusetts schools, the remainder of the school year has been left with plenty of things up in the air. The question I've been asked the most is, what will the last day for seniors be? With the decision to eliminate April vacation, many seniors are curious if that will affect our last day that was originally June 5th. With
I
everything
believe we
going
can
on right
answer
now,
that.
the Senior Student Council advisors, officers, and executive board have been meeting virtually to discuss how we'd like to see our senior year celebrated in a safe and social distancing friendly way. I look forward to sharing our ideas with you tonight when the timing is appropriate.
Great. I think we can address the last day for seniors, Rich, didn't we? Didn't you make a determination on that today?
Well, we'd like to suggest, since it's a calendar issue, we'd like to suggest to the school committee that May the 29th be the last day. June 5th was originally the last day. It usually involves some celebratory types of things in school during the day, and prior to that, it involves final exams, and we won't be administering final exams this year. So May the 29th is within the regulations, the state regulations, 12 days from the original closing of school, if you work your way back. And so I think May the 29th is a Friday, and we'd like to recommend that that be the last day of school for seniors.
Okay. All right, and we will be talking about the events a little bit later. If you aren't going anyplace, hang around, and we'll do there. Joel?
I'm just curious, Kate, you specifically, how often are you in a class with a teacher live, and how often are you reviewing pre-recorded? Like, what's the blend of instruction that you personally are receiving? Just as one example. You're muted.
You're muted again. Here, I can do it. Okay, you should be good.
We good?
Yep.
So I would say 5 out of my 7 teachers are available via Google Hangout call or a Zoom call during our scheduled class time, no matter what day, like no matter how many times a week that is, they'll be available via Google Hangout call. The other 2 out of 7, they're available via email. So if you have a question, you can send it to them. But things are being put up through Google Classroom, documents, emails, and Khan Academy, for example. There's been a lot of different platforms.
Any other questions? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that anybody would like to remove for further discussion? Okay, I was just going to say, one of the things that we have been asked to do in this remote meetings is to have the same person make the motions and the same person to second them. I know that if you don't want to, if you know, it's a little bit difficult if there's something controversial that you don't want to do that. But I'm going to ask Melissa to make the motions and for Joel to second them, unless you have objections.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. We need a roll call vote, Maria.
Pope,
I can't hear you. Did you say?
Chairman Pope?
Yes.
Okay.
You're.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken? Mayor Taken?
Getting
Back
tea.
to her. Yeah. Ms. Weason?
Yes.
Kathy Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Favazza?
Yes.
Mayor Taken, are you back? No.
Did Sam vote?
No, not yet.
No, you didn't. You didn't call
Sorry,
Sam.
Ms. Watson?
Yes.
Thank you.
She's still online, but I don't.
What?
There she is.
There she is. We just had a vote on the consent
Yeah.
agenda, and we were
You
looking.
were unmuting me while I was unmuting me, and we both muted. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So it's unanimous. We'll move on to our deliberations. There's only one item, and it's the standard item for this season, which is an update on the school closures. Dr. Sapphire, and we're joined by all of our principals and department heads. So I expect we'll be hearing from most of them. So, Dr. Sapphire.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a couple of items that I'll run through, and then as you have suggested, we have our principals here, and they can speak a little bit about each of their schools as well. So some of the issues, September 14th, I had mentioned that as possibly a holiday. Apparently that is going to be a state holiday. It's an extra holiday. And I presume that if at all possible, the Boston Marathon, people would like to see that happen as well. So that's something that the school committee is probably going to want to take under consideration in terms of our calendar for next year. The Department of Education is continuing to ask districts to fill out a technology survey. About 65% of the districts have so far, and we are in the process of doing the same. The Department of Ed allegedly is discussing matters with telecommunication companies and some of the large computer manufacturers to see what they can do to try to provide resources for districts. So stay tuned, and we'll be filling out that statewide technology needs assessment as well. There'll be more remote learning guidance from the Department of Ed coming out hopefully by the end of this week. And what they're going to be emphasizing, according to the commissioner, is not only are they recommending that teachers work with curriculum that already has been covered this year, but they'd like to see if it's possible for us to move forward as well. Not every teaching standard by far, but there are power standards that encapsulate a lot of the other standards. And what they're going to be recommending is that we seek to try to turn our attention to those, especially now with school closure being extended, as a means for trying to get students ready for the next grade level. We'll be hearing what they have to say, and there'll be a lot of conversation in faculty meetings about that as well. In terms of the competency determination requirement, that is fancy language for passing the MCAS. Statewide, there are 3,600 students as of today, but we're waiting for the March retest results. For those that may not have passed that, the focus will be on getting those students to pass over the summer. And the Board of Education will be voting probably within the next week or so on what next steps are and whether or not there'll be a possible waiver for seniors who still have not met the competency determination. With respect to reopening of schools, they, like the rest of us, are hopeful that summer school of some sort will be available. I don't know that they spoke about whether or not funds would be available for remedial purposes, but where there is summer school, they are talking about trying out measures for safety in order to create as smooth and safe of an opening of school come September. More on that later. They spoke about engagement being an issue, and in our leadership team meeting, we've had that conversation as well. Parents being either unable or in some instances unwilling to participate. The message from the Department of Ed is do the best you can. Most important is to try to make connections with families and see what you can do to provide mental health supports and keep a list of those who you could not connect with as well. Particularly important for special education students because regardless of whether they participate or even if they don't participate, we would still be in line to provide compensatory services. The MCAS cohort appeal process is still available. This is another means by which students can be measured, just like student growth percentile, they can be measured up against the results of students who have scored similarly to what they've done on the MCAS. And those appeals are still being accepted. There's a regular schedule for them. I think it's on a certain Friday of the month. And if we have students in that particular situation, we can submit those MCAS cohort appeals. Senior requirements, more information coming, recommendations from the Department of Education. We spoke about education evaluation. That is a local issue to be determined within the district. We have language so far in the MOU, which extends all evaluation timelines and deadlines proportional to the number of days that we're out of school. We talked last week about the possibility of simply starting fresh in September for next year. With respect to graduation, which we'll take up a little bit later, superintendents need to work together to think about ideas, so not really giving us much information. There is a lot of advertising coming our way by way of email, asking or suggesting online remote methods of graduation, not to suggest that we are deciding on anything other than, and James will speak to this, these are his words, we want to find ways to honor and celebrate the graduating class of 2020. In terms of the budget forecast, all resources, monies for FY20, quote, continue to flow. 9 seat cuts this year are not anticipated. Grant programs, we can continue to draw against the grants that we've received. The CARES Act, the state is waiting for guidance from the U.S. Department of Education. $215 million is allocated to Massachusetts. 90% of that flows similar to the way Title I allocations go based upon low income. And the other 10% there, the Department of Ed is looking to see how they might distribute that as well, possibly for districts that do not receive Title I grants. In addition, the governor has an emergency relief fund It's $50.8 million. And the governor will be looking with advice to determine what districts, programs, or institutions might most negatively be affected by the coronavirus situation. FY21, I think I talked about that a little bit last week, but they are going back to the beginning of the process. The big issue is, as we all understand it, is to figure out what the revenues are going to be. The House and the Senate normally create their own budgets, but are looking to develop a budget together in concert with the governor. When the budget will be due, we don't really know. The Student Opportunity Act money, of which $229,000 is scheduled to come to the Gloucester Public Schools. Hopeful, but don't know is the message from the Department of Ed's Chief Financial Officer. Let's see if there's anything else. MCAS, when we return, the traditional MCAS is planned for next year, and they have to figure out what they want to do with the current 10th graders who are missing the test this year. In summer school, there may be some federal money, and the question there is, can that money be used to supplement monies that districts may have, or can it supplant and we use those dollars in order to provide remedial summer school for students who might be, loss of reading and things like that. So let's see, impact, no. We also had our leadership team meeting today, and we met, Aria was gracious enough to come and speak about helping to promote some positive public relations. How is learning taking place? What creative things are going on? And GEF would like to help in that regard. They're asking who they can connect with. The principals are thinking through and will contact Aria in a very short period of time so that we can begin that process of publicizing things like the 3D printers piece. And in special education, and I believe that Patty is here, but we're trying to figure out how best to schedule transition meetings. In other words, from preschool to grade 1, from grade 5 to grade 6, and grade 8 to grade 9. So they are working on trying to figure out what the best time is and the best process and procedures. Patty, is anything that you wanted to weigh in on that?
No, I think that we still have some time for staff to get sort of comfortable to their online instruction before we move forward, and hopefully we'll have something scheduled mid-May so that we're prepared for the students to transition successfully in the fall, whatever that might look like.
Great, thank you. We talked a little bit about the budget, which the school committee will be voting on tonight. Technology update. Grant has developed a remote learning website for the district. We are going to be using a committee that we brought together to develop some of the technology guidelines and safety precautions that were worked on a couple of 3 weeks ago. We've got the format, and now we have to figure out how the content will enhance clarity and not create more confusion, because some of the feedback we're getting is that people are feeling that there's a lot of information coming their way, and it can be somewhat confusing. So there'll be a committee to try to figure out how we can really provide an attractive website, which is also quite clear and helps to address some of the needs of our students and their families. Chromebooks, Greg, I think we've probably handed out, what, close to 500 or so?
Yeah, it's should be about, it's well over 500, 525 or 30 or so. A large number went out in the 3 large-scale pickup days that the IT department staffed. I believe there were 3 days with lots and lots of cars coming, and then I think the other half at least have happened each day. And as parents realize that they need an additional one per family, or need at this point need a swap for one that is not charging or something like that. But yeah, it's probably close to $5.50 now.
Thank you. On the meals update today, 286 breakfasts and 486 lunches were served. And on average, those have sort of been the numbers since we switched to the afternoon. So we haven't seen any decline really in the in people participating in the meals. We had a little bit of a scare in that one of our staff members in the district may have been exposed to COVID-19. That particular individual was tested, proven negative. That individual was asymptomatic. People who were directly in contact with that person are on a 14-day quarantine, but we're taking those extra precautions, working very closely with the health department in terms of how to address the situation once it comes up. But again, everything so far has tested negative. We talked nuts and bolts about the Term 3 standard-based report card. Standard-based report card doesn't just give an overall general grade for English, math, science, or social studies, but it talks about the specific standards, things that children need to demonstrate proficiency in over the course of a particular term and throughout the course of the year. That's really not going to work at this point in time based upon the pacing, the amount of work that we can give over the course of the week, and the extent to which we can or cannot move forward with our curriculum. What we have decided is, since we really can't execute the standards part of the standards-based report card, what we can do is amplify the descriptive part. And teachers referring, for example, to those aforementioned power standards can provide a nice paragraph description of not only the child's participation, habits of mind, and all that business, but to what extent do we have evidence that the child is demonstrating an understanding of what it is that's being taught. But given the circumstances and how exceptional it is, the consensus is that we would move forward with the report cards and that we would amplify the descriptive portion of a student's sense, our sense of a student's understanding and performance. There have been some questions about getting personal items in schools, dropping off library books. We're holding off for a couple of days on that. James in particular and Lynne at the middle school level are in conversation with their peers in other districts. Everybody's obviously wrestling with the same kinds of things. We do have a process and a procedure in place, which we use with our staff who need to go in, but we need to be extra careful in terms of safety. It's one thing to have 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 children, but what happens if 600 at the middle school need to go in and empty their lockers and huge numbers? So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do about student access. Our inclination, or my inclination, is to minimize taking any risks whatsoever in that regard. But we want to wait and hear what districts are thinking about as far as that's concerned. We've had some conversations regarding online library resources. The Sawyer Free Public Library has been receiving inquiries from students and families about accessing some of the online library resources. So we're setting up some arrangements to work in concert with them. We're still looking at the issue of hotspots. One of the problems for some kids not only is that they don't have the computer, but they don't have the internet access. Grant is going to get some quotes. Is it T-Mobile, Grant, that you're getting a quote from?
That is correct.
And we're going to find out what it would cost. Oh, Grant, maybe you could explain what, if you don't mind, what T-Mobile would provide for us.
Okay, so T-Mobile is offering hotspots to districts at a specific rate. The devices will be configured with content filtering on them for compliance for SIPA. So basically, we would get the devices, and we would have to figure out how we would get those out to the families in need. So
Great. Thank you. And in conversation, we're going to try to be working with the Gloucester Education Foundation to provide the financial backing, provided that this is something feasible and reasonable and something that we can achieve. I think, Melissa, you had.
I have my hand up, but I don't. I'm sorry, everyone. You know, today they know the Lieutenant Governor was talking about hotspots and supply through the state and with the COVID and for schools and everything else. So let me get some more information for you on that too.
Great, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Melissa?
Sorry, I was trying to get you when you were talking about iPads, so I'm going to go back a little bit. So you stated that we handed out over 500 iPads. Do we have enough iPads for all the students that need them, or are we out of iPads?
Okay, A, we're using Chromebooks.
Oh, Chromebooks, I'm sorry.
And B, Greg can describe to you how we think that the river has gone to a trickle at this point, and there are different requests coming in now. Greg?
Yeah, the IDT department was able to pull quite a few Chromebooks together about a week and a half or so ago. And so given the drop-off that I saw today, this week, in the amount of people, it's been, you know, up to 30 or 40 families coming each day for a couple weeks, but today and yesterday, less than half or a quarter of that. So I think the need is slowed down, and there are still quite a few Chromebooks left at the main office ready to go. So I think we're going to be okay. We'll certainly need a number of those for replacements on the go, but they did a good job pulling quite a few together.
So are you saying then that all students that we know of have access and that we're interacting with all students in the way we need to right now? Or are there families that we just are not connecting with and we don't know if they need a Chromebook?
I can tell you that the teachers and the administrators in every school are doing an incredible job with their outreach, and they have been communicating directly with families who have expressed any kind of need, and they have also been reaching out and asking. I don't know the exact number, but I know that several principals have said they're just down to a handful of families that they are not able to reach, and we're going to redouble our efforts this week and next on those. But I would say that we've done a good job meeting the needs of anybody who has asked or been identified.
Can you tell me what the efforts are that you're doing for the students that we haven't heard from yet? Is it a phone call, or are people actually going to knock on doors, or?
Yeah, maybe, Matt, if I can call on you for starters to help answer that question.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Sapphire. So I've been rather fortunate. I think we've talked to every single child or their family at VETS. And so we've been doing just a lot of outreach between myself, school counselors, teachers. I set up a Google Voice phone number. So I got that out to parents so they can call me directly or text me if they need to. That's been really helpful in getting kids their Chromebooks. We still do have some students without Wi-Fi, which really sort of represents, it's only about 4 or 5 kids, but that represents a big, an area where we're trying to help them. So in those cases, we're mailing packets to those students of work for them to do during the week, and we've worked it out. Their parents will take photographs of them working on it and send it back to the teachers so we can see that they've done their work. So it's really a consolidated effort on all parts. So I basically spend a good chunk of my day trying to track down kids. One message I'd love to get out to parents, though, is if your child, can't do the work or is having difficulty with the work or is refusing to do the work, reach out to the principal, reach out to your child's teacher, because we have plenty of ways that we can modify and plenty of ways that we can help to ease the burden on families and that, so that, the kids are still working, but it's something that's manageable. But, just don't not communicate with us. I think that's something we really need parents to know, that they can keep up the communication with us. We're certainly happy to help in any way.
We spent a considerable amount of time in our meeting today talking about how do we respond to overwhelmed parents with legitimate concerns and problems. And that's not to suggest that we've got the answers at this point. Our psychologists, adjustment counselors, our teachers, they are reaching out to these folks. Our special education people in particular are reaching out to these folks. We just need to do a better job of educating ourselves, researching it, and doing the absolute best that we can, and try to reach as many people as we possibly can. But it's a concern, as this goes on throughout the course of this school year. It's people have had to adjust their lives, work. Those who are still working, it can be very disruptive for parents to have to juggle, and if you're a single parent, it's even worse. So, we're going to continue to think, talk, and try to act on what we can do to help alleviate, some of that stress.
And my final question real quick is, do we know what the turnaround is on the hotspot? I mean, I know you said Grant's getting quotes, but do you know when we expect to see those hotspots in place?
Grant?
Well, that's going to be a supply and demand. Although the last time I had a conversation with our rep at T-Mobile, they did say that they had quite a bit in inventory. So I can't give you an exact time or date, but they should be able to get it to us pretty quickly once we get the ball rolling.
And the point's well taken, that the longer you wait, what's the point, right? We want to really do it as quickly as possible. Kathy?
Which is what I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah, my question is, I know we've gotten some really terrific communication via email. I get it from the principal, but I'm just wondering if there, to Matt's point of trying to get the word out, have principals been sending some voicemails, very simple targeted voicemails that, just express something as simple as, please call, this is how you reach me. We want you to know we're all thinking of you, because parents may want to hear a voice. And if they're having difficulty with Wi-Fi, or maybe their email is overwhelmed, maybe just once in a while that outreach by voice instead of just, to follow up on an email, I think might be welcome.
Mm-hmm. With your permission, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but strongly encourage our principals to continue doing so if they are reaching out, and if not, to please do so.
Rich, I can speak to that a little bit, I think.
Oh, great, James.
Sure. So, Kathy, is similar to what you've said. Approximately once a week, I will, send out and I know some other principals have done similar things, is just sending out through school messenger, a call, and inviting folks to call my direct line at the school. If I'm not in the office there, it leaves a message for me that goes to my email, and so I'm able to respond through voice to those families. We've also done with Sabrina Giordano, who does work with our English learners. We've also done had her make some calls in Spanish and Portuguese directly to those families with a friendly voice. For similar reasons. So it's not all email communication, but we're also reaching out by voice and inviting people to respond that way.
Samantha.
Thanks for that update. So I just want to preface this with the fact that all my questions are based on parent feedback, and I don't want it to sound like I'm undermining all of the hard work that's being done on a daily basis. I myself, as a school committee member, are feeling a little bit ungrounded on sort of what's happening day to day. I don't have kids in the system yet. I have younger kids, so it's hard for me to try to support parents when they have questions specifically. So the things that would be helpful for me to understand are these. Are there sort of across the board at all the schools, are there consistent expectations on how often teachers are connecting with students in real time, whether that be on Zoom or on Google Classroom or on the phone? And if so, how is that teacher participation being monitored? I know we're not doing evaluations, but how are people sort of making sure that the connection is being made? What I'm hearing from parents is that human connection is missing sort of on a daily basis, and that kids are sort of in some ways being asked to be sort of passive receivers of information versus sort of having more dialogue. I don't think that that's happening so much on the high school level. I'm hearing that high school seems to have a really good handle on connecting regularly. And I realize that's much harder on the elementary school level, but what I'm hearing is that parents are feeling particularly overwhelmed with not having enough human interaction with teachers. So I guess I'm sort of wondering, what is the expectation and how is it being monitored?
I'll start and say that if there are issues, then families should certainly be contacting principals and providing the feedback. That's one of the most direct methods. In terms of the expectations, we had spoken through with respect to the memorandum of understanding, and we're sort of, I mean, those are for now, those are the guidelines that we're going by. The faculty meetings, to which I hope the principals will speak to, are the areas I would hope where there are consistent conversations about what the frequency is for, for quote, human connection. And with that, I would turn it over to the principals.
I can speak to that from the middle school. I think that, as Rich said, that the expectation that's consistently across the board is a twice a week interactive piece. I can say that every teacher at the middle school has many, many more connection opportunities with kids than that. Almost every single teacher has open Zoom links or meets at every single class time. So while the direct instruction may not be live, because the kids would have to be there in that moment to get the instruction, and we have a lot of kids who can't be at that place at that time because of home situations. But the teachers are there and available and inviting kids to connect with them, get questions answered, do a check-in, etc. So when I look at the weekly overview that I send out with links to all of the houses and what they're sort of a preview of what they're planning for the week that goes to families, universally down the week is, here's when the Zoom is open, here's the link for the Zoom or the Google Meet, whatever they're using, so they can have that interactive piece. In addition to that, they're also doing things like holding, a brief mandatory, I actually kind of asked them to shy away from anything mandatory because I don't want kids who can't be there to feel left out. But they've got this is when we're going to do a brief overview kind of things early in the week. Fridays, a few of the houses are doing like end of the week community meetings with different themes. So it's sort of wear a silly hat. They're planning things like that. But the connection and interactivity piece, more feedback that I've gotten from families is that there's so much and the kids need some help prioritizing on that. So that's one of the things that we're working on. I'm frequently saying to parents, don't worry about being at every single Zoom. They're really optional. They're time for connection, they're time for questions, but all of the information is in Google Classroom. It's, a screencast that a teacher has prepared or an assignment, and the students can interact with the materials and with the adult at the same time. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Telena, but also say that we have been having conversations about what is the data that we need with respect to participation rates. To what extent are the lessons live and interactive versus taped? and how in a broad way we can, through surveys perhaps, get student and parent feedback. So, we were having those conversations, and we'll be picking up on that sometime early next week as well. In terms of gathering that kind of information, it needs to be done, and it's complicated. It's both. And Telena, you were talking about that a little bit earlier today.
Thank you, Dr. Sapphire. This morning I called when I looked at the agenda for leadership, and I kind of hit my wall this morning. We've kind of rolled with the punches for the last 5.5 weeks, and today thinking about how to quantify the levels of participation of 367 families really was kind of mind-blowing, because I've got teachers who are all working really hard and families who are meeting the expectation the best that they can. And through these 5.5 weeks, families that were gung-ho weeks ago, their kids' moods are changing, the pressures at home are changing. So, we have, a variety of pre-recorded lessons for regular ed teachers and special educators. But we have about 25% of our population are students on IEPs, so they don't have one teacher planning for them. They have a teacher and a special ed liaison and related services. And I have a lot of families who can only do the Spirit Day stuff. Like, they're really struggling with the expectation of 5 days of 3 hours a day of work. So, I think it's all hard to balance. What does that look like? At every grade at the elementary level, we have 6 developmentally different ages at elementary. And so we have some grades who are meeting multiple times a week, some grades only meeting once a week with their kids. And then we have some people who are having office hours and it looks different for them. So it's hard to, I think that by grade, we're trying to be consistent, but at West Parish, we don't platoon. And so even that, 3 teachers do have 3 different styles and it doesn't look exactly the same. But teachers do send me their plans every weekend for the week. And I do know exactly what's happening. So if parents have questions or they're concerned or they're frustrated, I do welcome a call from them at any time.
Anyone else?
Sure, Rich. I'll just respond to the issue regarding Chromebooks. I just want to remind anyone that's listening is that remote learning doesn't necessarily have to take place in the form of virtual contact with parents. We have had some parents that do not want to tune in to a virtual experience and have requested packets or activity bags. And when the DESE put out their guidance regarding remote learning, they were very clear that remote learning could take place in the form of supports and resources or virtual contact with kids. So in the area of special education, and I'm sure in general ed as well, we are providing packets for parents for their students so that they can do some hands-on activities, or there are some kids that like to just sit and do some practice worksheets. So that is also something that's going on across the district as well.
So we're in a situation where we would like to maximize interaction between teachers and students, and recognize that there are skill sets with respect to the remote learning that are in various stages of development. And we also have to recognize that it's not going to replace brick and mortar. The type of contact as consistently as it can be on a daily basis in a uniform, I say it in the best sense, in a uniform environment, which is a building and a school, it's not going to be the same. So with that said, we need to maximize what we can do live and interactive, and recognize that it's going to take some time before we hit peak levels of being able to accomplish that. And I think at this point, if there are other reporting outs by principals, if I may, I know, James, you're going to be sending out some information that parents are curious about and interested in. Would you care to share a little what's happening?
Sure. I think you're perhaps referring to the just our now that we know that we will not be returning to the physical building this year, and we'll be continuing with remote learning through the end of the year. Our attention has been able to turn more fully to issues such as how the remote learning grading system of credit, no credit will translate into final averages. So we'll have, we've been vetting that as a school, and as well as researching in collaboration with 10 other area schools. And so we'll have some information for parents forthcoming about how those calculations will work, and our plans are solidly within the range of what other schools are doing for determining final credit following a period of adjusted grading. So that's that's one of the things we've been able to shift our attention to, along with various other logistic issues related to moving through term 4 to the end of the year. And that's one of the things that it's those sorts of things that the governor's announcement earlier this week have allowed us to shift our focus to some of the end of the year matters.
Lynn, anything else at the middle school that you'd like to add?
Sure. Similarly to what James just mentioned, we're working on how our grading is going to play out. We have different responsibilities around that, given that our kids aren't going off to college. But we still want to make sure that we're able to very soon be clear with them about what it is that earns you credit. Teachers have been talking about how to give feedback back to kids to make sure they understand where they're standing while not putting too much pressure on them when it's difficult for them to participate as fully as they would like. There are a number of different community connection things that are going on. For one, we have a virtual talent show coming up that's in the works. We also had our guidance department solicited from our students short videos thanking healthcare workers in the area. So they'll be seaming that video together, and that will come out and be published, which is a really nice community connection. They're trying to think about virtual lunch bunches and different kinds of community-based activities to help the kids feel connected. Regardless of how well we do this right now remotely, and as Dr. Sapphire said, we are still very much in a learning curve. Kids are not going to feel as connected as they do when they're in the building with us interacting. I felt a little conflicted when, knowing the governor's announcement was going to come up and thinking about what it would be like to try to plan how to re-enter school after all of the effort and energy had gone into planning exiting school and getting this up and running. I was actually surprised at how sad I am about the fact that we're not going back. That relief of not having to plan re-entry right now, I thought was going to be a little larger. And I think the staff is feeling that way as well. They're starting to get into a routine. Lots and lots of conversations on a daily basis about which kids are interacting, who's turning in work, is it their usual quality and quantity? How can they help support that? Coming up against the limits of our ability to do outreach the way we are able to do it when we have kids in front of us face to face. And everyone's working through that with a lot of support from our guidance staff, the assistant principals and I, trying to figure out what we might also be able to do to make those connections. We have our Spanish teacher and a former science teacher who speaks Portuguese available to do translations to call families who speak those two languages. So we've been trying to do all of that kind of outreach as well. The last thing I want to mention is just the teachers and how they're helping out each other. We've been able to put together a pretty regular professional development set of offerings. It's all, our teachers, for teachers. And we're sticking to a small suite of technology tools that, so people can really hone their skills on things like Google Classroom that we're all using now, but not everyone has used in the past. Things like Screencastify that enable teachers to, show their personalities and yes, it's a video, but at least it's your teacher talking and teaching you the lesson that you can watch at different times. And then some other kinds of more interactive tools that, Edpuzzle is one that we'll do some work with, that is a video tool where teachers can put questions in, so engage kids in thinking as opposed to just watching. They have to interact and respond. So I just want to give kudos to the staff for, they're really trying to think out of the box as much as possible to, assess on a daily basis how their kids are doing with this, what's missing, what they can do better, how they can improve their skills in order to become more effective with this, given that the kids and they are all in this whole new universe that they're trying to do very differently than they normally do. So it is a learning curve. It's a pretty steep learning curve. I'm, sad, but okay with the fact that we're going to be able to work in a routine and continue to do this better. But it isn't the same as having kids in front of us and having kids in a building, and that fun kind of chaos that comes with middle school is missing in everybody's lives right now, and it's a little challenging. So thanks.
If it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, Amy, and then perhaps Matt might want to speak about their schools a little bit.
Sure, please.
East Gloucester has been working hard, as all others. The teachers are diligently creating lessons and reaching out. They're doing Zoom calls and Google Hangouts. I have fifth grade they were sharing how excited they were to use the breakout feature of Zoom, so they can do a lesson and then take small groups and really work on the math and kind of help specific students with particular problems or questions. They're helping each other with the professional development. We're all learning as fast as we can how to teach remotely. And somebody will have a neat idea how to turn a worksheet into a live document that students can answer, and they'll share that with their colleagues. So it's really kind of nice. We do have, and I noticed it yesterday with the governor's announcement, just like Lynn said, there's a little bit of sadness because we want to see our kids and we want to be with them and check on them, and it's not the same. But we are doing the very best we can. I think our focus for the upcoming weeks is going to be to streamline what we're doing, to make sure that our expectations are realistic for the families that are kind of struggling out there, while still having that balance of challenging students who are wanting more. So it's a very fine line, and it's hard to do that when you're not seeing the students. So we're going to try to streamline our platforms and really prioritize what standards, those power standards are going to be great, to prioritize what we're going to focus on and how we're going to keep the students moving forward. We're also considering how to honor the end of the year, and our fifth graders, certainly not the same as seniors at the high school, but they are leaving elementary, and to honor their time and how to have some closure is definitely a concern, and we're going to have to think collaboratively. My music teacher is already talking about a possible virtual spring concert and things like that to really kind of honor the end of the year and moving forward. It's going to be a challenge. It's a challenge for all our schools, but I'm proud of the teachers for sticking with it and doing the best for the kids.
Samantha?
Amy, I had a chance to check out your music teacher's YouTube channel.
It's pretty awesome.
It is really awesome. And if there are teachers doing some YouTube videos, or they have channels, would you guys mind sharing them if they're okay with that? It was really uplifting to see it. And I think it's just really nice to see what work is being done, and how teachers are using the technology. I guess that's sort of the point, is like, I would just love to see how people are making this work.
So initially, initially we've been using Class Dojo because it is online, but it's a closed circuit, not necessarily open to the whole world. So I'd love to let you see what all teachers are doing there. They're doing foundation lessons and all kinds of things that are available just for their students. But there are some that, teach at multiple schools, like the music teacher, it has a YouTube channel. My art teacher has one. So yeah, I definitely would love to share that. And things like our spirit days can be seen on Class Dojo. Maybe I'll find a way to let the school committee take a look at the stream and the fun that we're having to connect.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. And it's nice to sort of see, I get the sense that, and I hope this is not true, but I get the sense that this might not be the first time this happens. And so the more that we streamline and share ideas and get a sense of how to make this work in a quick, sort of fun way, then hopefully it will be less stressful if it happens again.
Yeah. Another fun, like my gym teacher he's using Flipgrid, and he'll do a activity challenge and put it out for the students to do a morning workout routine or something like that. And they will videotape themselves and send it back to him. It's really kind of neat because it's interactive. They can do it at their own pace. So it's nice. The way they're being creative to interact has been tremendous.
And Matt, how are things at the future site of the new East Gloucester Veterans Elementary School?
They're going well. I'm looking forward to that new school. Anyways, just put a plug in there. But we've been doing a lot of work. I want to thank, I've had a couple of interpreters that have been making phone calls to families for me, both in Brazilian, Portuguese, and Spanish. And they've been invaluable, getting in touch with families to find out exactly what the issues are for them. My 2 ELL teachers also have been already started to run their classes virtually with the ELL students. And some of these kids, even though English isn't their first language, have been some real rock stars, getting their work done and connecting. And we're just really proud of so many kids. Again, the sadness with school being, we're not going into the building for the rest of the year. I got a lot of emails yesterday from kids who are just really sad about not coming back to vets for the year and how much they miss all of us. And we miss them. Tradition at vets is that we have a Monday morning meeting. It's an all school meeting that we have every Monday, and we have a certain set of routines. So we've started that up on Class Dojo. So complete with Miss Carney doing her meditation that she does. Only this time she was out in her backyard with the pond behind her. So it's very nice music playing. So we're still doing those things. And the kids are really connecting. So again, just to echo what everyone else said, I'm really proud of my teachers. Really, there isn't a student that we haven't spoken to. We've gotten in contact with all of them. And so we're just going to keep that up.
Thank you, Matt. Jody.
Hi.
Hello.
So I just want to echo what my colleagues are saying. Many of the same great things are happening at the Beeman School. My special education staff and my EL staff are fully operational, connecting online with their students in the groupings that they would typically see if school were physically in session, and making sure that we're meeting those students' specific needs, in addition to the general ed classroom teachers who are all finding different ways, either through Google Classroom or Class Dojo or Zoom, to connect with students. We do have a combination of pre-taped type lessons or live lessons, just to kind of be respectful of families that do find it difficult to connect at a specific time each day or a specific day each week, whether they're sharing computers with multiple siblings at home or we have a lot of parents who are still out there working, they're essential workers, and so it can be difficult sometimes. So we want to make sure we're not leaving anybody out and trying to create a nice variety so that students feel that they can get involved and get included at different times during the day. We've been working hard to kind of keep everybody's spirits up. I think staff as much as students. We've done some silly videos. We had the staff's faces all implanted into chickens, and we did the chicken dance with students that we posted for everybody to see, but we've done some crazy sock challenges, and we did acknowledge autism awareness with Light It Up Blue, and we did a puzzle challenge where students walked through the neighborhood to see some of their fellow students posting puzzles in the windows and counting those up. And we continue to kind of come up with those ideas to make sure that we're finding fun ways to keep the culture alive and connect with each other in ways that aren't necessarily academic. I have fielded quite a few questions from parents who are feeling a little overwhelmed or confused by our new remote learning, and I've echoed the sentiments that we've heard tonight, which is, you know, do what you can. I've worked specifically with teachers to kind of think through modification plans when families do need that, to make sure that students are getting something while they're at home and not missing out entirely.
Great, thank you. And rounding it up with, or winding it up, I should say, with Plum Cove.
Well, as my other colleagues have mentioned, I have to really thank all of my teachers. They have really come together since March 17th, when that was the last time they were allowed in the building, thinking it was just for a couple of weeks. You know, they have participated in district-wide Zoom meetings or Hangout to talk to their colleagues to figure out and what are we going to provide our children. They have learned from each other. I believe there's been more communications between the teachers and their parents, more so now than ever. Our teachers, not just by email, but by phone calls, by the office hours, by Zoom meetings, by Google Meets. It's just ongoing. We use the platforms, you know, Class Dojo. We also use the Google Classroom. And like Jody and Matt and Amy and Telena said, there's a variety of platforms being used, and some are doing pre-recorded lessons and some are doing live. And it's a mixture of all to meet their needs of their families and their students. And I just couldn't be prouder. I am very sad that we're not going back to school. I miss all the kids, but I have been joining in on the different grade levels when they've been meeting via, you know, Zoom, and just hanging out and chatting with the kids. And kudos to our specialists, our gym teacher, music teacher, and art teacher. They have a great choice board for the students to do. And if the kids can't get everything done, it's still live for the new week to come up. And I think it's bringing us all closer. Even though we don't like to be distanced, I think we're getting closer in other ways that we didn't realize at first. So I just say kudos to the students, to our families, and to our staff members.
Thank you. And if you can just indulge us, just a little bit of mention from Lynn about 8th grade and celebration, and also plans for bringing the 5th graders into 6th grade.
Thanks. I forgot to mention this when I spoke earlier. Just as James is thinking about prom and graduation, the 8th grade closing ceremony, though at a smaller level, is a really important, momentous occasion for kids. So we are still perhaps hoping that maybe we can do something end of June, but it looks like we would either have something later in the summer or more likely plan something virtually. The 8th grade team is going to be discussing it at their grade level on Friday. There have been suggestions from having a virtual luau to doing some sort of online closing ceremony. So we'll be putting together plans for that. It is important that we make note and we celebrate that occasion. So we are intent on figuring out a way to celebrate the kids' move to the next stage of their lives. And likewise, on the other end of the transition, we are unable to do our visits and things like that for the rising sixth graders. They did come up and see the musical in person, but you know, the rest of our activities were pushed off because of some scheduling pieces and now not being back in the school. So I already have a couple of students working on a virtual orientation for kids. And our plan is to engage some other sixth graders to do a video Q&A. Last year, we implemented a panel of students at the orientation that was live. So we're going to try to replicate that. There will be a virtual tour of the building, which of course isn't the same without bodies in it, but we want kids to get a sense of what their space is going to look like, hear and see their teachers speaking, and hear and see and hear other current sixth graders and talk about their experience. And we'll also be doing some invitation to families and to gather information about what they want us to know about their kids, which those are things that typically happen in meetings or phone calls, etc. Those invitations will be open for people as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So in summary, as you can hear, we've got beehives of activity. The work is in various developmental stages because in many respects it's new for a lot of people. But what we're looking for and hoping is that things will coalesce around best practices which will address, you know, the thoughts and the concerns that parents and guardians and students have, so that we can provide the best instructional delivery that we can under the very, very different circumstances that we now face.
Okay. Samantha.
Rich, just one final question. Is there a place for districts to share best practices?
Yes, I can start with the North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable has been looking and examining a lot of the issues, many of the issues that, you know, I've been describing. And James and Lynne, at the very least, I don't know what the elementaries, but James and Lynne can speak to the discussions that they're having, you know, with principals, fellow principals in and around the North Shore.
Sure, Rich, I could jump in on that. So the Northeast Conference principals are in regular communication about best practices related to access and engagement, remote learning and assessment, and the various logistics that we face. So we're you know, regularly putting out questions, creating spreadsheets with our various draft solutions to issues. And then of course, each of us is also adding our local situations to the, you know, to make the best choices, but we're continually gathering a lot of information about how we're handling, like I say, everything from access and engagement to remote learning and assessment, professional development, and the various logistics that we face. I did neglect to mention earlier, speaking of professional development, I thought it was, you know, it sort of illustrates some of what's happening throughout our schools, that during this meeting, there are 2 different professional development sessions happening through remote learning channels at Gloucester High School right now. So just something to think about while we're talking, teachers are at the same time learning out there. So I wanted to add that in as well.
I don't recall professional development ever taking place at 8:23 in the evening. Am I correct in that assertion?
That is true. It's a new, for folks with small children whose children have gone off to bed, right? This is the 8 o'clock is the best hour for folks to engage in some of that PD. So Samantha Texera and David DePietra are both offering PD this evening.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions of the principals or the superintendent? I'd like to thank everybody for all the work you're doing, and also for showing up here at our meeting to answer all these questions and give us an update on what's going on. We all appreciate what everybody's doing. And we know it's not hard. I had a conversation the other day with somebody, and it was something that hadn't occurred to me at all. And he said, well, I've got my grandchildren for school because both of their parents are actually working remotely, and they can't participate in the elementary school children's online learning. So they're going to their grandparents, and certainly not everybody has that option. So everybody has their challenges, and you know, they're all different, and we need to be aware of that and do the best we can to accommodate everybody's different problems. So thank you.
Jonathan, could I do a motion to accept the superintendent's report?
Sure. Yes, please do.
So I move that we accept the superintendent report.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Maria, roll call vote, please.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiesen,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
and Mr. Favazza.
Yes.
Okay. It's unanimous. If we had no actual subcommittee meetings this past week, but the search committee, which is part of the personnel subcommittee, has been active. And if Melissa, if you could just update us on what is taking place in that area.
Sure. I reached out to Dorothy today, and I did distribute her remarks, but I'll just read them into the meeting. So the update is of today. The Superintendent Search Screening Committee met for the first time on April 14th to receive its orientation. All 14 members of the committee were present and enthusiastic about participating on the committee. The application period closed on April 17th, and 21 applications were received. Members of the screening committee have received the application materials to review. The committee will be meeting on Thursday, April 23rd to discuss the applications and decide who is to interview as semifinalists. I just want to note on that, I looked and I didn't see that meeting for tomorrow scheduled, but I did see one for April 27th. So I don't know if it was a typo or a scheduling issue, but I'm not sure if they're meeting tomorrow. She also goes on to say, I will note that the committee decided to meet on the 23rd rather than originally scheduled April 30th meeting. So we are able to move the timeline for the search up a bit closer to the original plan. Please be aware that this may also move up some of the dates as the rest of the search proceeds. And just know that after I received this and distributed, I reached out back to her. I was curious who they elected for the chair of the search committee, and I was told that it was Jim Destino. So I think that was an excellent choice. And that's all she had to say for now, but it seems like everything's going great. 21 applications, that's kind of what we expected. That's good news too.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to action items, and if while we have people here, I'd like to take item C up first, the reschedule of the senior prom and graduation. These are items, these are issues, and I'm sure and we've heard there's issues at events at the middle school as well as all in the 5th grade graduations and plays. There's a lot of things that are challenges, but these are also things that are generated from the school. So I would defer to Mr. Cook, Principal Cook, to update us on what the thinking is. And we have, I'm looking for, is Catherine still here?
Catherine had to leave, but she's emailed me the proposal that the class of 2020 has is willing to put forward tonight. So I'll read that out after Principal Cook is.
Okay, thank you, Joel. So do you mind taking the lead on this, James?
Oh, not at all. Of course, yes, it's been on our minds, and as we've all realized with the cancellation now through the end of the year, it rises to the top of our considerations. And I did speak with the advisors to the class of 2020 earlier today. We pulled together a meeting, and so I'm familiar with some of what the students leaders had talked about, and Joel will share that more specifically in a moment. But so we have a guiding principle. The guiding principle, as Dr. Sapphire alluded to earlier, is making sure that we celebrate and honor the class of 2020. And so, what that looks like in terms of, various proposals that are coming forward about how to have what is possible for remote or virtual events and celebrations is one avenue to consider. Another avenue that is to look at is postponing or delaying into the summer months, celebrations or and ways of honoring the class of 2020. And so we're open to that. And also, there have been folks, some students who aren't student leaders, but, had made some suggestions even about, say homecoming and that sort of thing in the fall, and having an extra special version of that in the coming fall when folks come back. And inviting the class of 2020 back even in the fall to extend the celebration as well. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about. We're also working out logistics about Gloucester High School traditions, such as every year there are sweatshirts. Many of you might be, are familiar with that list each of the members of the graduating class. And so there are logistics to be worked out about how folks can order and pay for those that I discussed with Dr. Sapphire earlier today, as well as the class advisors. And the other sorts of traditions that we have, and making sure that we're again being guided by the principle of honoring and celebrating the class of 2020. But really of principal importance is starting with the students and the student leaders who have put so much time into extraordinary fundraising, including the Gloucester version of Monopoly that's been so popular, and so that when we're thinking about what the celebrations and honoring are going to be, that their wishes are first and foremost, as this is their year. But that's the guiding principles, some of the things we've begun to consider, and some of the logistics that we need now to work out.
Okay. Joel, would you like to convey Catherine's proposal?
Sure. So this proposal was put together by Lily Favazza, who's the class president of the class of 2020, and Catherine Bevins, who's the president of the executive board. It was presented to the student council for the class of 2020, and they have supported it. So it addresses 3 issues: graduation, prom, and leftover class funds. For graduation, although they would like to see, when it's safe to return, to have some sort of official walk the stage type of ceremony, they're proposing in the interim that they would do basically a parking lot graduation. They would ask that all graduation speakers take a video of their speech and submit the video to the student council. They'd ask each graduating senior to submit a photo, and the student council would then stitch together the videos of the presenters and the pictures of the graduates to create a graduation video that could be projected on a large temporary screen erected in a large parking lot. Families would be allowed to park and observe the graduation from the comfort and safety of their own vehicles. Again, this is not necessarily a replacement for a more traditional graduation ceremony if that becomes available, but in the interim, this at least allows some sort of public recognition in real time of the seniors graduating. So that was their proposal. For prom, the very mature take here, and the classes agreed they view their prom as less important than many of the other events that may be taking place, which is weddings, celebrations of life, etc. And so they're no longer looking to tie up an event venue for the prom, and are instead, expressing interest in simply having a prom in the GHS field house again, when public health officials deem that to be a safe event. But they actually were kind of excited about the novelty. The Gloucester students are very fortunate that every year they get to have a pretty lavish prom at some pretty exciting locations, but having it in the gymnasium would make it more like a movie or a television show where they typically show prom just at the high school gym. So there seemed to be actually some excitement around this alternative. And then when they spoke about their leftover money, because the moving of the prom to the field house would eliminate significant costs on the class funds, they are looking to take the remainder of their class money and donate it basically to local organizations that are stepping up to help those who are dealing with COVID-19, such as the Open Door, Action Incorporated, any GoFundMe's for local families, any other families that have medical bills related to COVID-19. So it's I just got it a few minutes ago and reading through it. It's, very mature and very altruistic plan that's been proposed by these seniors and supported by the council. So that's what they're suggesting for discussion.
Well, as I said, it's their decision. As far as I'm concerned, we have never, organized or planned the prom or the graduation or any of those things. We get invited to them. So once again, as long as they work within the guidelines that the state is putting out, I think that the power, as far other committee members maybe take objection to this, but I think it's their call.
Jonathan, I'm in agreement with you. They do. I mean, I think that's part of the maturity of the seniors, is that they've always amazed me with how thoughtful they plan everything and they execute it, and it really is their event for each other that we do get to be participants in by being attendees and celebrating with them. I just can't imagine how hard this is for them emotionally, and I want them to know we really care about how they're feeling, and I'm sure they probably have good days and bad days like the rest of us, but that proposal they put forth is really impressive.
Melissa?
I think the proposal is really, really responsible. A little concerned, well, not concerned, but I mean, we're in April, so I can't help but wonder what the timeline that they're planning this is, and I'm sure they need to discuss it more to figure that out. I do agree that it is their decision, but I can't say that I don't have a little bit of concern, because the feedback that I've been getting, which is a lot over the past couple days, it seems like there was an expectation of more than what this is, but this is their day, their event, and I wholeheartedly support whatever it is they want to do. I just want to make sure that the outreach to all the students has been done to come to the determination. But kudos to them for being very responsible seniors. The only question I would have is, I'm wondering if there's a regulation of the time period of when they have to get their diplomas upon graduation. Because if I'm hearing that they might want to put it off a while, I thought I read somewhere that they had to have their diplomas within a certain amount of time in hand, or something in writing in hand stating that they graduated, which was necessary for college going forward. So I would just want to have some sort of feedback or on that issue. If they don't want to do anything right away, how long, what's the time period that they can go without getting their diplomas in hand? Or are they suggesting we mail them the diplomas and then go forward with some sort of parking lot celebration? So there's just a little bit more details to figure out, but I wholeheartedly want what they want, because this is their year, they deserve it, and whatever we can do to accommodate it is what we should be doing.
Rich?
I'm in agreement. I don't know whether there's a regulation or not. Certainly the school can arrange to send certification out if a child's going to be attending college or something along those lines. I'm sure that we can confirm that that the student has met all the responsibilities and regulations and all the rest. And if worst case scenario, as you suggested, if we had to mail them out in advance, anything to avoid creating more of a headache for these kids as they graduate. But we'll work out all those details and such. I'm sorry to be the humbug in the sense that the governor has closed schools for the rest of the school year. Planning a prom is certainly a suitable way of going, but it's not going to happen, in June. It's not going to happen before the end of the school year because school is closed. It's closed for health reasons. And in their planning, they're going to need to create a bit of a buffer that is consistent with what the state is telling us the risks are.
Okay. Anyone else? Joel?
And just to that, throughout this document, there's a lot of clauses that say whenever it may take place. They seem to be very cognizant of the fluidity of the situation. So I think that'll be received by them with the same maturity they produced this with.
Laura?
Just a procedural question, I think, is what coming from what Melissa said. Does the student body have any voice in this, or does the student council sort of just to make sure that people are largely on board? I mean, I think this is a wonderful, mature plan. I'm just wondering if the rest of the senior class has a voice in it.
Joel, can you answer that?
Yeah, I promised I wouldn't, but I'm actually sitting in the same room as the class treasurer, and it's typical that every year the senior class student council plans senior banquet, the senior prom, organizes graduation, gets the agenda set. So it looks different this year in the way in which they're planning it, but it's always the student council that puts together what prom is going to be, etc.
Okay, great, thank you.
And if I may, just so this is James Cook again. Yes. So the leadership knew that the council had been very supportive of this and had brought this issue up previously, and so that is sort of the impetus behind bringing the plan forward today, was that it's such an area of concern for the city as a whole. Many of you have been to Promenade before, and it's a citywide event, and so so conscious of that, our very, mature seniors and leaders, knew that it would be important to bring it to this forum to let folks know where they're thinking. Again, and as to echo what Joel just said, these are decisions that the student leadership, as representing their peers, make regularly. And so they're doing so again. And then to echo another thing Joel said, they are very mindful of all of these plans are related to decisions and issues of health that have to do at the state level and the city level. So but they did have these ideas and creative solutions, so wanted to share those as quickly as they could, with this idea of honoring and celebrating their peers. And the thing I'd like to highlight again is this idea of donating the money was something that when I spoke with the class advisors earlier today, that they were particularly impressed about that recognition from the senior leaders.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think it's very mature, as Joel said, and it's very impressed with their solution, and I absolutely love the idea of the drive-in. I grew up with them, but they work. They're social distancing. Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure, of course.
I don't want to bust anyone's bubble. I think it's great. You think vehicles are social distancing, they, and I know you're saying they're all adults and you're saying it's just going to be family members, but then, other people hear it. I mean, that is something we're going to have to pass with the Board of Health. There are restriction and guidelines that we have to do. Well, unfortunately, we'll have to make a fake gate and put police there and make sure it's, one ticket per household. like you do if it was a rainy day, because the parking lot at the high school is not going to fit 1,000 cars unless you want to put it up stage 4. And, you know, like graduation. But, you know, as we were thinking and we're talking with other mayors and stuff, you know, we have a huge football field. You can separate them enough and only have their parents come, that you can do. And it doesn't mean we all have to give our speeches and we all don't have to shake hands. It could be 2 people. I'm sorry, the superintendent on stage and Mr. Cook. That's it. So it has that 6 feet on that stage, and these kids can still have their stage. No one says that they don't have to have graduation. That field is big enough that you can separate those chairs, and the bleachers are big enough for their parents only. We've done it before when it was rainy days and we didn't have things. That's something else too, if they want, because you can do that. And we still can do, you know, the video, and I think that's great. And I think that's, you know, all of that. I saw some videos now on Facebook that someone's put together. I think that's amazing. And we can put it everywhere. And you know what? We don't have to just have it just for families. We can put them up in a lot of places that are happening in town, just to give them that recognition everywhere they go, that they should do that. You know, I would love to see a billboard actually with all their pictures on. So every time someone drives by, they'll see, you know, congratulations. If I had enough money, I'd do it personally. Congratulations, you know, the class of 2020, you deserve it. But just be careful when you do, and think of it, and make sure you pass it. Not with me, because I love to approve everything. I want to get out and have a big barbecue. Who are you kidding? But make sure the Board of Health, because we all have restrictions, and we want to make sure we're following through with that. But you still can have a graduation, people. You still can have it. Doesn't mean you have to have the old-fashioned way, but you all can. How many students are going to graduate?
Usually right around 200.
200 can fit in that field and separated at 6 feet. You really can. So think about that. And you could have the parents scattered all the way around. We could do it to make it so these kids can go in their caps and gowns. I don't know how you're going to order them through the mail or whatever, but they can still do it where they gather. And it doesn't matter, you know, the parade around, you know what, they can still walking very slowly, each separated. And you know what, you can do it. We can do it if they really want to. If this is what they want, we can do it.
Melissa?
I'm just so happy to hear the mayor say this, because I was thinking that thought today, thinking how big the field is, and parents could stand around the outside of the field too to create more space. So I think that's an excellent idea. And Jill, since you're sitting in the room with the treasurer, or have a connection with the leaders of the students, perhaps you can offer this suggestion from the mayor.
They say 10 people. Joel's right. He texts me, and he's good at that. And I'm going to say it. He said that, you know, we're not going to, because it's 10 people per inside. We're not inside.
Right. We're
okay.
outside.
And we can ask for a waiver through the Board of Health. That if we want to do the graduation, we set up that diameters where they're all spaced out, we could do this. Like I said, but it's not going to happen right now. It's not going to happen during the peak. Don't forget, graduation was going to be in June. So if we did it when I doubt the fiestas happen, people. We're not going to be able to put 10,000 people on a beach. So, and that's my own opinion. I don't think that the Board of Health will allow it. So, but I think that on this, if we send the pictures, we talk to the Board of Health, the CDC, we plan ahead of time, and you do it, and we show them, it could happen. Now, okay, so they might say that might be too small. Who says we can't have graduation at Stage 4 Park? We can block off that road. We did it for the Riverfest. We had 10,000 people. I'm sure that we could put 500 people there. Their parents and their kids, or whatever, 600. Just something for everyone to think about. That's all.
Yeah, I'm happy to let everyone on the student side know it was discussed. And obviously, if there's a way to get around that 10-person gathering, if that works in the field, I'm sure they'll be excited to hear that's a possibility. So I'll let them know.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I hate having a lawyer for school committee. As soon as I talk, he right away texts me out. Well, don't forget the jurisdictions and this and that and everything else. I thought I might not sit next to you, Jill, that I can get a break without you tapping me, but he still taps me. I want to thank you for that, Jill.
Okay. We're going to go back to the rest of the action items.
Well, one more action item, and I don't care. We're doing it because since you're having meetings every Wednesday and we're having everything, I just want to say happy birthday to Jill's grandfather, who's going to be 100 years old tomorrow.
Really?
And I'm going to drive around in my car and beep. Sorry.
Can we all do a parade?
Yeah, there's a parade actually. If you The Sawyer Free Library parking lot at 4:45 and the fire station parking lot at 4:45. We're gonna process down Middle Street in our cars, honk at 44 Middle Street, and let them know we wish them a happy birthday.
That's great.
Thank you. That's very good. Okay. The next action item is to write a letter to the city administration and city council to support of the implementation of security projects at Gloucester High School and O'Malley Innovation Middle School. These came up last fall, so I'm not sure Laura and Samantha are familiar with them, but there was a proposal brought forth to do some work at both the high school and middle school to essentially create double doors for the entryway. And it was approved by the school committee at that point. And what we approved was to ask them to be designed and to proceed. So I believe they're now at the point where they are designed. I've been told they're scheduled not for this summer, but for the following summer, the summer of 21. But Mike Hale at the Building and Finance Subcommittee meeting last week suggested that it would be a good idea for there to be on record a support from the school committee to write a letter to the administration just saying that we are in favor of proceeding with this work, which I believe we did when we voted for it, but there's no harm in doing this. So
I think Mike's point was also that I think the funding is going to go before the city council at some point soon, so that they would have that they would just have a tangible sign of support to the city council.
Okay.
And, and to the mayor.
Okay, so the motion is to authorize the school committee secretary to write a letter, and I'll help you with this, to indicate their school committee support for the security projects at the Gloucester High School and the O'Malley Innovation Middle School.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, Maria.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Present.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
and Mr. Favazza.
No.
Did you get called, Samantha?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So it carries 5-1 with one present. Okay, so and I will give you the background on this, Laura. Okay. The next item is to approve the CFO to transfer for $180,000 from the main office contingency fund to the food service clerical account. This is essentially to pay the food service workers for the work that they're doing currently, providing lunches for the students of Gloucester. And because there's no money coming in from lunches, they are running at a deficit. Gary could explain this a little bit in a little bit more detail, but this money is currently in the school committee contingency. It's there. It doesn't appear that it's going to be needed for anything else, or and we hope. And but it is definitely needed to pay the food service workers. So
I'll make a motion to authorize the CFO to transfer $180,000 from the main office contingency fund to the food service clerical account.
You want a second?
Sorry. It's my turn.
Okay. Okay, discussion. Gary, would you like to, would you like to fill us in a little bit on the costs and the fact that, and how they get reimbursed, or whether we're getting reimbursed eventually? Maybe not.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was just trying to unmute.
Okay.
We currently receive monies two different ways from students who pay lunches when the school is open, and then through the federal reimbursement for paid lunches and breakfasts. So far, we're serving over 400 lunches. We're taking in about $40,000. However, per month, our payroll and food costs exceed that. So we're anticipating running a deficit, and instead of paying the food service workers through the revolving fund, we're going to pay with this motion through the general fund, which has enough money to subsidize the food service account.
Okay. I'd just like to say that we can't run a deficit in the food service account, and if it were to go to the end of the year in a deficit, we would have to backfill it anyways. Is that correct, Gary?
That's absolutely correct. This motion essentially does what you just said, backfill the food service account, because we can't run the food service account into a negative position. We had a balance over $100,000 last year, and so we anticipate if we we'll spend through that 100,000 and then some. That's why we need the 180,000 to support the food service fund.
Right. And the other thing that's is critical with the food service is that they need to have money at the end of the year for startup for the beginning of the next year, because they don't have any money coming in until they start selling lunches. So, and you got to have food to serve. So there's a couple of things here that that are happening, but once again, we really just have to do this. Any other discussion? Laura?
Just a question. Is there, if state money starts to come to supplement the costs, is that money solely to be used for food itself, or can that be used for salaries?
Yes, the money can be used for food cost or salaries.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't know if that's coming at this point or when, or is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Roll call vote, Maria?
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Present.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiesen,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
and Mr. Favazza.
Yes.
Okay, it carries 6 in favor and 1 present. And we'll move on to the next item, which is the approval of the MOU with GAPE.
I'm sorry, just so you know, it's not that I don't want anyone to be paid, and I know how this goes, but just in case, because the way everything's going, and then if you have to come ask me for money and I already voted yes, and I don't know how we're going to vote that way. So it's not that I don't want people to get paid. First of all, Martha Jo is doing a wonderful job, just so you know, and everyone that's doing it, and the food that's being presented today. God forbid we didn't feed these kids. That's all I can say. Of course, I endorse it. Of course, I want it, but technically, I just have to vote present. Just want everyone to know that.
Okay. Anyways, the next item with GAPE, as far as I know, and Rich, you can correct me, or Melissa, but they have not approved this yet. So we're just going to table this till the next meeting.
They've approved it verbally, but it hasn't been ratified.
Ratified. They haven't voted it. So we will just table it until it's voted. I'm going to take the grant next because it's simple and it's important. And before we lose we're down from 33 to 17 attendees. So this is important. It's the acceptance of a grant, Project Bread Grant, in the amount of $3,750 to help offset the labor costs associated with providing meal services during the COVID-19 closure. My understanding is this is a grant that was done in conjunction with the Open Door, and but the money will be going to, once again, help pay for these lunches that we're providing to students. So do we have a motion?
So I'll make a motion to approve the Project Bread Grant in the amount of $3,750 to offset labor costs associated with providing meal services during this COVID-19 closure.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, Maria.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
and Mr. Favazza.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll move on to the budget. The budget before us, and I don't have the numbers right. I don't have this in front of me, so I may have to depend on Gary for the bottom line budget that we passed back before the public hearing and in late March. We need to approve a budget to go on to be submitted to the city, so the city can then put together their budget, which they're in the process of doing anyways, but they need our number. Just want to say there's a lot of uncertainty around money right now, for not just for individuals, but also for the state government and to some extent for the city government because of that. We're going to make it through this year without any substantial cuts, but we have no idea where we're going to be for next year. As the superintendent said, there's talk at the state level about the Student Opportunity Act not being funded. The city depends greatly on beach, no, not greatly, but substantially on beach revenue and hotel tax and meal tax. And there's no known, there's no way of knowing what that's going to be. So we have a budget before us, and as you'll remember, we had a recommendation from the administration. We had an understanding with the city of what they may be able to afford. We added 3 positions to beyond the recommendation of the administration, and the total budget that we are starting with right tonight is, and I'm going to have to ask Gary for that number because I
Sure.
have it written down in front of me. Is it in the packet?
Let me just tell everybody the number.
Yeah.
It's 44,792,716 So that was the amount that was in the public hearing, and that was discussed when we held the public hearing.
Right. So this is always a little confusing as how we move forward with this, because we have a budget that we voted for the $44 million. And so unless we change it, that's the budget we're going to submit. So I think the way we need to go about this is, if people want to amend or make a reduction in that budget, they need to make a motion to do that. You know, the argument that we've heard is this is what we need, and we should put it forward. You know, it's probably almost very likely that it's not what we're going to get. So there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. One is that we can put this number forward because we've made the case that this is what we need, or we could reduce this number, acknowledging that we're trying to work with the city and come to an agreement and a compromise. So I'm open to suggestions about how we proceed. Melissa.
Thank you. I would just suggest that we put forward a motion for the amounts that we are considering, and then as part of the discussion process, we can find out if there's going to be any amendments. But I just want to remind everyone of all the hard work that went into this number and the reasons why we're at this number. I mean, we talk about a lot of new positions, and I'm sure that scares many, but we also have to be reminded that we have 2 schools in turnaround status, and it was the recommendation of the state that came in and did an analysis that we do put these positions in the budget. So it's not like we just decided we needed them. It's been suggested that we needed them, and we realized that we need them to improve our student achievement. So I would just suggest that we put the motion forward in the amount that we had been discussing, and then just see where that goes to the discussion of the school committee. And if we need to amend it, then we do. I wouldn't look at it as not wanting to work with the city. We all know that we don't get what we ask for, and that's expected, and that's
Can I tell you
understandable.
something? You put that kind of an amount in budget that looks like you're not working with the system, the state, or anything else. Are you for real? Are you for real? You need to look at your budget. I'm sorry, because I usually don't say anything, and whatever, I let it come through and let you guys work it out and hash it out privately, whatever. But you're putting people who are listening into this conversation today, thinking that, you know, hopefully that can go. We're looking at furloughs, layoffs. We're looking at that. We have 1 year. We're lucky, but we're looking at, might not be able to build a school. You're looking at, we're not going to be able to get a lot. Like I said the last time, we're over $8 billion in the whole state, never mind. So we're looking at no fundings. Now, if we don't get back together and we don't get this city up and running by, let's say, June, July, a little bit slow, first of all our hotel, motel, all of our taxes, revenue, beaches, everything that we need to survive, half of our income to survive, we're not going to be here. We lost this year. I talked to all the businesses and everything else. If they don't start running out, their whole season's closed. Because remember, we are a seasonal place. We are not all year long. I'm just saying to you, don't put high expectations. You can pass that whole in fine. But you know what? Don't let them cut it drastically. You really need to say, okay, the budget has to be in, put a number realistically, but really look at what we can and cannot do, class sizes, because let me tell you something, what might happen. And I don't want to freak people out, but what they're talking about now and what they've been telling us, yes, we need to get back to work, we need to do that. But unless they come with a vaccine or people already have it, you're looking at 8 to 12 weeks. We're going all through this again. So we need to also put in that budget. You need to look at all the Chromebooks that you handed out. You got to put that back in your budget. You got to put in necessities that we're going to need, because you know what? I know you need these teachers, but you're also going to need some of the essential people that you're might have to lay off. Thank you.
Melissa?
So I just wanted to finish what I was saying, because I don't show any disrespect to the city, and as a state employee, I completely understand what's going on in the world, but I wanted to just put the motion forward. If we have to do this motion tonight, we don't have time to go back and look and determine what is necessary and what's not. And we'll be here for 10 hours if we try to figure that out tonight. So by putting the number forward, I would hope the message would be that we mean absolutely no disrespect to the city, and that we do understand that things are changing, that we do not have direct information on. I know I haven't received any direct information on how bad the state economy is going to be a month from now.
I don't mean to be a bitch, but aren't you listening to TV and everywhere else?
Let's be respectful here and let people talk.
I don't mean to be angry or be upset with people, but I'm just saying, realistically, even if you have to say, let's continue this and work with it, find out the numbers. You're putting numbers that it's like, you know what, you're looking for, everyone else is doing job freezes, okay? You know what, and I said this to you at your budget and finance. I said it to you last time. I've been repeating it over and over since we started. People, they have job freezes. People are crying. Maybe you guys should sit with me on some of these Zoom meetings with the mayors and the governor and lieutenant governor and hear what's really going on, or take some of the emails. They're laying off people. They have a job freeze. We're looking for a superintendent. Instead of saying to the superintendent, can you stay for another 6 months or whatever, and you're looking to hire someone at a higher pay. You know what I mean? I have all my offices. We have like 5 people are retiring and couldn't retire, or we're leaving it empty on the city side. I have no senior center director. I'm going to have no library director. I'm going to have all, but right now I can't even hire anyone. I don't have that in my will.
We need to be respectful, and we need to let people finish what they're saying.
All right, I'm sorry, but it's just, you know what? It's just that don't put false hope out there to people. That they see the number 42 million and we have to cut it 12 million. I mean, realistically, this is what I'm afraid. This is what's happening. We might have 2021 or half of it, but if our year does not extend and start doing it, we'll have nothing. How many people are going to lay off then because you hired people? That's all I'm saying.
Can I just finish?
Yes. Can you please finish, Melissa?
Yes. So like I said, putting the motion forward means no disrespect. If this is something that has to be done tonight, and I'm asking, because if it doesn't have to be done tonight, then I would strongly recommend that we refer it back to BNF and get some more information. I am someone that watches the news all day long in my house. My husband can verify it. I have not heard that the earth is falling, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. I just haven't heard anything directly, and I don't think the school committee as a whole has heard anything directly. So if we have to vote this tonight, we don't seem to have much of a choice but to put a number forward, knowing that that number is not going to be what we get, knowing it's not disrespectful to the city council, it's just where we are in this moment, and we don't have time to do the work for anything else. But if we can refer it back, then I would suggest we do. So my suggestion is to put the number forward unless someone here can justify a specific cut, and I don't know if we have that information in front of us. If not, refer it back and we do this next week. We are meeting every week. If 1 week doesn't make a difference, then so be it. Maybe we need to do some more work. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, just doing a process of what we are required to do, which is to put a number forward within the timeline. And if tonight is the timeline and we have to do it, then I don't know what much of a choice we have.
Tonight's not the timeline. We have to have it in by May 1st.
Well,
Okay,
there's
so
your answer then.
we have one meeting, one more meeting. So we could table it. I'm not sure how much more we're going to know, but we could get recommendations from the administration of what if we had to reduce it, or as we've done in the past, a tiered level of reductions. I think they're in a position to have that for a week from today.
Well, the mayor seems to have some information, which is what we need to know. So let's put it off and get maybe you meet with the people that usually meet with to discuss the budget, give us the feedback, and then we do the work. Okay,
Joel.
I'm disappointed to see Melissa change her stance. I thought she was right on the beginning of this. We need to this was the budget that was put together under the original instructions that were sent to this committee and this department as far as what will it take to provide level services. And we've added some additions to make sure that the overall services to the community are what are expected of this district, right? Pushing it off 1 week is not enough time for us to do a comprehensive job of paring this down under the guidelines coming in fast and furiously under the new reality with which we're living. So I think it would be more prudent to say, listen, this is the budget that was put together understandably under the old reality. So going forward tonight, because this is what we have. And then we'll have more time than just one more meeting to really dig into what the impact of COVID-19 and the coronavirus pandemic is going to be on city revenue, et cetera. And we'll have more time to do a more comprehensive and thorough job of paring this number down than trying to get it fixed before our next meeting. Just stay with what we have, push it forward. If anything, it's just educational, saying this is what it costs to run this district, and then take the time we would need afterward to remember.
Samantha?
I agree completely with Joel. I don't think it's fair to ask the administration in 1 week when we're trying to still get remote learning up and running and working for families and working for teachers, to also ask the administration to comprehensively come up with a pared down budget, considering how much time it took to come up with the number that we have. I agree that this is likely not going to be the number that we put forward, but I think the administration needs more time than a week. So I would agree with Joel that we should hold off.
I've had my hand up. Can I speak now?
Laura hasn't spoken yet, and she has her hand up also. Laura?
I wanted to ask, because I understand and agree with the idea that this budget takes far longer than, this is a very comprehensive budget that took a long time to put together. And just given that we just voted on writing a letter to the city council expressing something that seems a little unconventional, right? To write a letter about something we already voted on. Would it be possible to go forward with this budget as it is currently written, with a letter that says we understand the world has changed since this budget was compiled, and none of us know what that world looks like, to sort of say that we are listening, we are here, we understand that the economy is plummeting, we understand this. But I do agree that just, we can't this budget was put together with so much thought and so much care and so much input, that to sort of just pull it apart quickly, it just doesn't feel realistic. And as Sam said, or a good use of the administration's time. I'm not saying a letter is an ideal solution, but given that we just voted on a letter on something we voted on, I'm wondering if that could sort of ease the communications of this into something that can be more of us working with the city, and understanding the city is likely not going to be able to pay for all of this.
Fafia?
Yeah, Dr. Safra, you're twitching. Do you have anything to say?
No, we work at the will of the school committee on this.
Yeah. All right, then I'll will you. Okay, so this is what I'm telling you. First of all, when you voted on this budget, it wasn't the suggestion of Dr. Sapphire. You guys went over a little bit. You just voted $180,000 that you don't have money for, and you're going to see where you can get that because of this COVID. So you have to understand what the consequences are. To say that, okay, on TV, they're not telling us the status of the state they have, just because right now they're worried about people dying and not the income. They're not putting money towards it. But as mayors, when we have all these meetings, Sunday, we have a bitch session. So we all bitch of what's going on and what's not. Then we get all the emails. And on Tuesdays, we meet with the lieutenant governor like we're doing now, and we go, what's going on? I will forward you all that. Instead of saying, okay, next week we have to vote, you can, because everyone now is asking for extensions on their budgets because we don't even know if we'll be able to put it forward. We as a city, we're lucky, like I said, but 80% of the towns and cities can't even do their budget. They're asking if they can take money out of things that you would never be allowed to take out, and ask for waivers out of their sewer, out of their tourist fund, tax and meal, because everything's designed on a budget for what you can use. They're not going to make it, or it's horrible. But I'm not saying the sky is falling for the city of Gloucester. I'm just saying if we work now, maybe when the sky's ready to crack, we'll be all set for the 2023 or whatever. But you can ask for a letter saying, we are working on this budget. We understand some of the stuff. How much realistically do we have to cut or even, you know, because we already gave you and you already went above what we gave you. So now you're going to have to cut even more. So you could send a letter and saying, we need an extension. Can we have an extension before the May 1st so we can really look at this and really figure it out? Or you can ask the administration, you can say to me, and I can present it to the budget and finance and say, look, they're going to present these numbers because they tried. Let's work together, get a liaison like you guys had before, Pope or Jim, whatever, and say, what do you think is going to happen? What are the numbers? And because right now, if you look at it, and if you know how we exist in Gloucester, the motel and the beaches and the taxes, you know, even if the city opens up in June slowly, we're not going to be able to get all the revenues we do for the beaches because there's no possible way people are going to not stay 6 feet apart. The same thing, people aren't going to travel. People are losing. When I talk to the restaurants, like I'm telling you right now what they said to me, I'm getting texts as we speak because if some are listening, the fact is they're saying, even if we opened up in June, July, our season's already over because October it's closed. And that's it. And they have all this back pay that we're not going to be paid in our taxes, people. So I'm just saying, realistically, the money that you had, it's all, how much percentage it's from last year. And we asked you already, and you already went over that percentage we gave you because Joel said, well, why don't we just put extra? We need this. Why when we don't ask for it? Any normal person with a normal budget would say, yeah, why don't we ask for what we need and then we can cut back. But I'm just saying to you, realistically, we should have, again, your CFO with the audit and everything else and look at numbers where we're going to come and what we're going to do, because the fact is it's going to be very hard. It's going to be very, very difficult. And you know what? We can't keep cutting out of here and there. And if we keep cutting out of DPW, all of those wish lists and all of those repairs we talked about with Mike Hale and all of these other things, we're never going to be able to get done. So we still need all these things for the schools. We still need the trailers. We still need this. Yes, I know the teachers and everything else, but I'm just saying, ask for an extension so we can work on it, or ask for them to say, look, this is our budget. We know it's not going to, but give us some kind of a leeway what we have to cut. That's all. So we can all work together. So the parents and the teachers, they have a burden on themselves right now, but we'll have the time to be able to work on it, because I guarantee you everyone else is there's going to be an extension on budgets.
Joel?
So in digesting the mayor's feedback, I still think that Laura's idea seems to bridge that gap. We're saying, hey, listen, this is the budget that we're passing because this is the budget that we've come up with. We fully understand that there is significant work to be done between the passing of the budget currently and what the administration is going to put forward to the city council, what the city council is going to approve, and what we are going to need to reconcile at the very end. That way there's no confusion, but I still think it's a good exercise to say, hey, here's what it would cost, and we understand we're not going to get what it's going to cost. But we still have to show you what it would cost under normal circumstances to run this district the way that the public district be run.
Okay, anyone else? Samantha, did you,
Yes,
was that a wave or
yeah,
just?
no, I guess I'm just, so if we go forward with this sort of letter, then in the meantime, do we refer it back to budget, to BNF and
Well,
come
okay,
up
so
with a
just to
plan?
be clear, the normal process, the way it has gone, every budget that I've ever been in, is we pass a budget for public hearing. We have a public hearing, perhaps we make adjustments after we get feedback from the public hearing, and maybe add something or subtract something, and then submit it to the city. The city, the administration then has the budget. They have not just our budget, they have the DPW budget, the police budget, the fire budget, personnel, and all the budgets. And they come up with a budget that it has to be balanced. They have to show the revenue to equal the spending. Now, that's going to be incredibly difficult to do this year because they're not going to be able to predict their revenue as we know, as the mayor knows, and as she tries to explain. But so then they put forth a budget, and it is what it is. Now, every other department, they can bring into a closed room and sit down and say, listen, this is what we can give you. This is what, can you make it work? And they do their horse trading behind closed doors. The difference between us and every other department in the city is we're elected. We are not working for the administration. We are working for the citizens and the school children of Gloucester. And it's our job to represent them. We have to work with the city. The city we're all part of this. We're part of the city. But ultimately, we have a different role than all the other departments. And we have to make our case to the public. I think what Laura suggested, and Joel seems to agree with, right now for us to cut the budget, people would say, well, what did you cut? We could cut the bottom line, but do we know whether it's going to be this or that? Or we don't know. We don't know that right now. We don't know it tonight, certainly. And to think that we're going to know it a week from tonight is possible, but a lot of other things might get swept under the rug while we spend all that time doing that, or the administration spends a lot of time doing that. But ultimately, normally, they pass a budget. It isn't necessarily what we passed. And then we sit down when we know with the real number that we have, and we reconcile it. And we always do. And we always have been able to provide education for all the students in Gloucester as best we can. Sometimes we have to do without something that we wished we had, or sometimes we have to cut somewhere where we know we shouldn't. But ultimately, we go on. And so I would be in favor of that, rather than trying to figure this all out in a week. And we're not going to know the number. We're not going to know where we're going to end up. We might as well pass the budget that we already have, but not necessarily tonight. Why don't we pass it next week? And in that time, we will sit down, the administration and with Laura, and we'll come up with a letter that goes along with it that we can vote as not just as a mythical letter, but as something in print, and attach it to the budget. That's what I would suggest we do. Kathy?
I just want to point out that a lot of the increase in our budget is, is related to salaries and those kind of increases. But the thing the mayor was alluding to is the additional positions. So I guess the good news is that if, the budget will probably be, 100% likelihood less than what will pass, but it'll be positions we won't add, not necessarily positions we have that we have to cut. So hopefully that will be the dilemma we're faced with as we head towards the end of the school year when the budget is passed. Not hard decisions of, who's currently on staff. So and I fear that if we add too many positions this year anyway, this economic impact of everything is not just this coming year, it's going to go into the next year too. So, that's why I think being judicious on positions we add is going to be important as we think through, what is the ultimate moves we have to make the budget number work when we finally get it.
Mayor, you have your hand up?
Before now you noticed, but I agree with Kathy anyways, but thank you.
Okay, well, is everyone in agreement that we table this until next week, and which time we come up with whatever new information we can get, which I don't think is going to be the final information, and compose a letter that we attach to this budget and submit it and vote it and submit it next Wednesday. Melissa?
Jonathan, will you be reaching out or meeting with anybody to get more clarification on this on the city side before next week, like you usually do during budget
Yes,
time?
yes, I will.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I will. I'll meet with Jim or John Dunn, whoever is willing to meet with me. Okay. All right. Without objection, we're going to table this motion. It never was made a motion. We're going to table this item. The Massachusetts School Building Authority update. The school building committee met today. They really just talked about the feedback they had gotten from the city council and the school committee. They updated the timeline, which is really the same timeline as was presented to the school committee at the last meeting. And the significant thing that we talked about today was the HVAC system and whether they had done 4 different options. One was an option of gas-fired equipment providing heat, of course, throughout the whole building, but providing displacement air in the classrooms, but air conditioning in the administration and the art rooms in the public space. That was one option. The second option was gas-fired with air conditioning throughout the whole building. The third option was electric equipment with air conditioning in the whole building. And the fourth one was electric fired with air conditioning only in the public spaces. And strangely enough, that was the most expensive option. And so it didn't really make sense. That one got eliminated right away. And the gas-fired one with air conditioning in just the main office was not significantly, or within the whole building was significantly higher than the just in the main office. So they came down to gas-fired displacement air in the classrooms, air conditioning in the public space, or electric with air conditioning throughout the building. And the committee voted to instruct the, and we're talking about getting prices on these things. We're not talking about them being the permanent solution. We're talking about getting prices. So we directed the designer and the OPM to go forward with getting prices on the electric program with air conditioning throughout the building. So that's where they at or at. Laura?
Just sort of back to a question I asked last week of the architect, and since then I've heard about public health officials already starting to talk about potential needs in public buildings for certain kinds of air systems that will allow the air to be circulated in a way that people aren't going to be breathing the same air. I know that these are all very new things, but has there been, I mean, just in speaking about the HVAC, you know, we're looking into this new world. Is that part of the conversation at all? Because it feels like it will be in 6 months. You know?
All of the systems that would be bringing in fresh air at a high percentage. The system we have at West Parish brings in fresh air and meets those criteria. Okay. So they all do. All of the options that we're looking at currently would do that. But what they do is they constantly circulate the air. They don't go on and off, and they're constantly mixing fresh air. A percentage, I can't tell you exactly what the percentage is, but they're using air that's been circulated and mixing it with fresh air constantly. So I believe that's.
I mean, there may be. I just know that there was just a roundtable, I think yesterday or 2 days ago at Harvard, about what kind of percentages of fresh air will be needed once we start having people congregating in places like schools. So.
Well, I don't know if the criteria has changed substantially because of this, but it wouldn't surprise me if it had. Joel?
I was watching most of the meeting today, and I thought it was a good discussion. And I was glad to see that the building committee, which is representing a green community, was heading toward the HVAC choice that would not require fossil fuels to be burned on site. I also thought it was smart to look into providing air conditioning to the entire school as things get warmer, and if the school year ever gets longer, it'll be more and more necessary that classrooms can be temperature regulated. I thought the building committee had was on the right track today with that, and I thought it was great.
Kathy?
And I also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know the teachers overwhelmingly said they wanted operable windows. So there will be the ability to, on a nice day, get fresh air into the classroom, not depending upon the system.
Right. Yeah, they're currently, with the current plans, there are operable windows in all of the classrooms. So, yeah. Rich, you were waving your hand around?
It's similar to what Joel was saying, that these are state-of-the-art systems. They are very environmentally, ecologically sensitive. We've talked before about how these particular systems enable the construction of the building to be considered a certain LEED level, which has to do with the environmental efficiency that they have. And again, Joel mentioned something about the extensions of the school year possibly being longer. The other piece is that our special education summer school takes place at Veterans, and those are some of our most vulnerable children academically, perhaps otherwise as well. So the notion of having a system which, in their parlance, the designers, has a total annual equivalence, which has to do with the cost per square footage and the like, is not. The distance between the different systems is not astronomical, which means it's feasible for us to consider electric and air conditioning, not only in the public areas, but also in the classrooms as well. And if you're going to have summer school for kids who need to be able to focus and concentrate and all the rest, it seems to be a good direction to go in.
Okay. Kathy?
Just one final thing also, there may be opportunities to maximize the use of that new school in the summer. Different camps that we have at other alternate schools that may have, facilities issues or even repair going on, that we can have access to certain elementary schools or middle schools. This would, just provide a much different learning environment for all the kids.
Okay. So Fafi, you still have your hand up? Would you like to say something?
I have to learn how to put it back down. Hold on. Oh,
Melissa? Melissa?
I just wanted to ask, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the meeting today. I did watch it and it was a good conversation. But I'm curious to know, have you or the building committee heard anything from MSBA about any changes in funding, knowing that all this is going on?
I got a communication today.
Still going forward?
I got a communication today from Brittany Gomes, who is she's the person that's in charge of our project. And it directed us to something on their website, which is explains where they're at right now. I read it quickly because it was right before going into the meeting. I resent it to everybody, so I would suggest that you read that. It's the link. I sent the link to everybody on the website for the MSBA about what they're doing. Our OPM has been in touch with MSBA. He talks to them often about other issues besides us, and he's of the opinion that MSBA basically is seeing a lot of projects sort of ask for extensions or some way of slowing things down in general. They are currently they have the money that when we got it put into feasibility, basically they put aside the money that they would need for our project. So that money's there. If we don't proceed, there's no guarantee it's going to be there. Their source of income is not subject to appropriation, but it is subject to the sales tax. They get 1 penny out of every dollar collected from the sales tax. And doesn't have to go before the legislature. It doesn't have to go for any vote. They get that, but of course, they don't have any idea what that's going to be for the coming year, so where they are. But our project who knows what things are going to be like in November when we're looking for a vote on this. So, stay tuned. But like I say, there is some information that I sent out tonight that I can't relay to you because I read it really quickly.
Yeah, I saw that. I just want to make sure that you keep us in the loop, and just concerned because obviously most communities are going to be going through a very difficult financial time going through the next year or so, and I'm just wondering. I don't want to lose the idea of a new school because we can't afford it this year. If there is an opportunity to put it on hold, if necessary, I hope we have those discussions.
Yeah, I believe that a lot of people will be having those discussions, but like I say, right now, we need to keep going, get the Article 97 disposition passed, get the land transferred, get MSBA to approve the plan. And then if you were going to ask for an extension, that's the point you ask for an extension. Because then you've got something done, and then you just start it up again, as opposed to killing it now and trying to start from scratch.
And I see that the deadline is tomorrow, so the testimony for Article 97, do you know when the vote is?
I don't. My assumption is it's going to be soon, because they're trying to go out of session, and they're going to take it up before they go out of session. So, I assume it's going to be in May sometime. But I can find out. I mean, because the original, when they originally sent out the letter about doing testimony virtually, there was a date on it, but then they extended the date, but they didn't extend the date of the vote. So, so it was like a week later after they closed we're going to close the testimony, but then they extended it. So I could be next week.
And should the school committee have sent in a letter in support of Article 97? Or are they just assuming that we support it?
Well, none of those things hurt. I mean, I think pretty much they know we support it. They know the school committee supports it. Individuals can send in letters until 4 o'clock tomorrow, and you email them. So it's not. I sent mine in. The building committee voted to piggyback onto my letter.
I sent a letter in.
Yeah. So
I went to the website today, and you can literally just, instead of emailing, you can click on a link, and it just asks you if you support it or not, and then you can add some comments if you do. That was pretty easy.
Yeah, it's like a Google chat almost.
That link didn't work for me, so I sent the email.
Yeah, it didn't work for me either.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to have I don't know. It didn't work for me. So I sent an email. Joel?
Usually we have a new business section. So just
sure.
Before we end this tonight, I would like for our next meeting, as we saw, the mayor received a communication from a district parent who also happens to be a principal of an elementary school in a nearby district, expressing his disappointment for the way this district has been handling education, specifically citing lack of time the teachers are providing live, actual instruction. And I'd just like something from the administration to come back and speak to that, because I think we're hearing from a lot of parents around the city that the amount of time being provided by the teachers to the students is less than what they were hoping for. And while that may be within the bounds of the MOU we've agreed to, maybe we need to re-examine that, because there seems to be dissatisfaction in the district. I think we should probably address the comments made by this principal and by others that we're hearing.
I have a response from one of the principals in question. I'm waiting for a response from the others so that I can then address the letter that was sent to the mayor by a professional educator, and not to me or to the principal. So I do have every intent of responding to that gentleman.
Anything else?
Yes. So now that we know the facilities are going to be closed, I'm hoping, Jonathan, maybe you touch base with Mike Hale, because I know when we met with him last week, he said there was a possibility of getting the Fieldhouse project started a little bit earlier, which would be great, so that I think they probably need more leeway to be able to do the work more leisurely and spread out. And it would be nice not to have any fire drill before September if the project can get going, even a few weeks earlier than they expected.
Okay, I will do that. I will get in touch with him tomorrow, and I'm sure he's aware of it. And Melissa, there was something about scheduling a search committee meeting that had to be posted. Can you just send me that information in the morning so I can follow up on it?
No, I was confused, and because in Dorothy's letter it said that there was a search committee meeting posted for tomorrow, but I saw one scheduled for next week, so I thought maybe she got the date wrong. But in the meantime, someone reached out to me that is on the search committee and told me that they are meeting tomorrow. So maybe there's 2 meetings scheduled. I know Dorothy's been taking care of the scheduling with Stephanie and doing a great job. So I think we're all set.
Okay, good. So Rich, you're waving your hand around?
Yes, I'm sorry I can't let it go. I feel from my point of view that the conversation about graduation got a bit waylaid. Schools are officially closed. The governor has closed schools. Number 2, what happens if it rains? Number 3, we've got 250 kids and staff that are going to have to line up, congregate, organize, and march out. For the mayor herself said there could be a second wave of the COVID virus over the summer. We need to find a way, in James' words, to repeat, to honor, and celebrate, but I think we need to be exceptionally cautious about how we proceed with that celebration.
What is this? New information from where?
The mayor earlier said that there could be a second wave in this meeting of infections and COVID. The summer is not safe, and I'm asking us to use as much caution as we possibly can. None of us want to be in a position to make a decision that could lead to somebody getting sick. And
Can I answer that? Well, that's why I said we wait till the end. We're going to wait. There's no reason to do it in the beginning of June. Schools ended on June 29th. He didn't say he's going to extend it to June 30th. Like I said, we gotten pictures sent military style. People are still doing it. Other mayors are talking about the same thing. Limited. It could be done if it be under control. It would be actually more controlled than your drive-through. Also, that we'd have to ask the Board of Health. I'm not saying I can approve it. We still have to go through the Board of Health and a waiver from the state, but a lot of them are asking the same thing. And the fact is 200 students in a field, if it rains, and that's a whole different story, then we'd have to figure out maybe it's just one parent in there. It depends how you can hold, but we're also working on the field house. There's all those different issues if it rains. But the fact is, we take one day at a time, look at what the kids want to do. Let's find out what's going to happen. Right now, to mention anything, including to have a drive-through that you think you can be able to do, it's not going to happen April, May, or it's still going to happen in June. By then, hopefully, this peak is all run. We're slowly having a slow opening in the state, and we'll take it from there. I just don't want to see them to plan on something, because the fact is, they think they're not going to have nothing. These children deserve something. There's got to be a way that we can do it. We've done it in the past. We can still work on it, and there can be waivers and there can be things happening. Because not for nothing, if you think that in the end of June, you're not going to have 200 people at your beaches unless we close them, then it's the same exact thing. Why can't they be there on the graduation field? But like I said, I don't know. I'm not going to look that far ahead right now, because right now I have to deal with, we're still in April. The peak is still there. The numbers are coming in. They're still going out there. We still are across the whole state. Everyone's numbers are coming in. We're having more testing, so more people. And the fact is, we'll find out after in May. And like I said, I don't know what's going to happen. They closed the schools until June 29th. It wasn't because of the peak. To be truthful, is if you open the school at the end of May for what, a month? It was, and then you got to go back to the other way. You have to remember that the unions, the teachers unions, and everyone else sent it. We need some kind of closure. Either we're going to open or we're not, because you are looking at the same thing. Are you going to do it this way? Or are you going to do it that way? When the governor got all these information from the unions, the teachers unions, everyone's union, and asking them, what are you going to do? And he was going to wait, and everyone was going to wait to see what's going to happen with the peak. But they said, you know what? If we're going to do the homeschooling and we're going to give these kids, we're going to set up these classes to stop it in June, in the middle of June, for 2 weeks of school to get all those kids back to school, it's worse of a disruption. If this was, let's say, in February, he probably would open the schools. But since we're already in April and the peak is up, there's no way you can really open the schools for a month, because the disruption of bringing the school, getting the buses, and getting the kids back in school, they already lost it. So you might as well keep them at home, do the learning at home, and get them a structure that they can do, and hopefully it goes from there. But the fact is, we're very okay in Gloucester as far as our peak is going up, but it's not like other communities. But I don't know what's going to happen next week. I really don't know. We're getting more testing done. We're doing more nursing homes. We're doing other things. I cannot make a decision for next week, let alone, what's going to happen in June. Like I said, we don't know the peak in 12 weeks. We don't know. But that all being said, you're all working on a plan. You're looking at things for the kids to do a drive through, the video and all that, and that would happen. It can't happen next week. It can't happen soon, whether they're in their car and they're all separated, because that's considered a gathering. But I'm just saying, don't give false hope to the kids, and don't turn it. Let's think about it. We have this whole month of May to think about things, people. And the kids all said their opinions, or they all want things. I think what the kids are looking at us as adults to say, they're worth it. We appreciate you. We understand you. We want you to have the best of best. And they need to hear that from us all the time, that yes, you deserve this. Yes, we deserve to do something. And all the stuff that the teachers are doing and the parents are doing, and the videos, and you yourself tonight, just having this kind of conversation is showing to them, wow, that, they're spending time on us and we are important. Let's do something for them that we figure out that we can do, and it can be accomplished. That's all I'm asking.
Mayor, if you're trying to say that we should do what we can, accomplish what we can, be as hopeful as we can, and be as exceptionally cautious as we can, then I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, we're agreeing. Now you're leaving with that we agree. Oh, let's continue.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that spaghetti sauce, Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I don't do takeout.
Second.
Roll call vote, Maria.
Chairman Poe,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Absolutely.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiesen,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy, and Mr. Favazza.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.